Clemson got absolutely dominated tonight. I mean, that's the only way to say it. Pure domination by Louisville. Hats off to them. Congratulations to Louisville and their fans. Great win for them in the Valley. First time they ever beat the Tigers. Not only did they beat them in the Valley in a night game. So shout out to Louisville and congratulations to that team and their fans.
Yeah, man. Y'all gonna have to excuse me for my voice. I've gotten all my frustration and anger probably out during the game, so now my voice is a little shot. So we're gonna power through this one. But at this point, like we've had some experience with losses like this. In our time doing this show. But and it hasn't quite felt like this one had. This one did. There's so much about this game that didn't go right that like it feels pointless to even like go into detail and talk about different points in the game, because just flat out every aspect of this game was awful, just awful. So like I don't want to waste too much time and dive into the stats, because really none of that matters. We saw with our own eyes what this game was, and what it wasn't, and what it could have been, and what it shouldn't have been. So I think like we'd be better served if we just talk about like kind of like the overarching takeaways from this game and what this means for this team, this program. Because all of the things that we had talked about, from week 1 to now, with the perceived improvement of the offense, the jump that Cade Klubnik had made in his second year in the Garrett Riley system, the improvements that you've made on the coaching staff, all of the things that we had talked about and hyped up to some degree. This game just like spat in the face of all of that. This feels like last year in a lot of ways, particularly offensively. Minus the turnovers. You didn't turn the ball over, great. But you did turn the ball over on down. So it's basically a turnover. So like, I don't know where do you want to start here? Because I'm just at a loss for words. There's so many thoughts going in my head, but like where do we start with this game and what it means as far as the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, big picture, I'm gonna just be honest, and I said it to you backstage before we came on. Clemson absolutely ruined their season tonight. Plain and simple. Coming into this game tonight, Clemson was playing for a potential ACC championship berth and a 12-team playoff berth. Those things are off the table now. Is it possible that Clemson backdoors themselves away into the playoff, or excuse me, not the playoff, the ACC championship game? Absolutely. But that would require other teams to stumble and has nothing to do with Clemson or what they're going to do the rest of this season. To me, I just want to start with the coaching tonight. I feel like Clemson was absolutely blown off the field by Louisville's coaching staff. We looked unprepared. We looked disinterested. We look like a team who hasn't practiced. We look like a team who came into the game with no plan. Like we were shocked that they were going to cut block us. And then there was no adjustments from the cut blocks. So we got zero pass rush the entire game. Nobody looked like they were bothered at all that we were getting our butts kicked all game. Nobody looked spirited on the sidelines. There was no emotion. There was no anger. There was no yelling. There was no energy. There was nothing. I mean, it feels like
other than Dabo, like yelling at everybody and like everybody's just kind of.
There was no response from this Clemson team. There was no response. Dabo was quite irritated at different points in times in the game. They showed him. He was yelling. He was trying to get people going. He was yelling at coaches. He was yelling at players. At the end of the day, the entire team looked disinterested. And I know Dabo was spirited at times tonight, but that falls on him. His team came out there not ready to play football tonight. And that falls solely at the feet of one Dabo Swinney. That's your fault. You can't come out there as a fringe top 10 team and get your doors blown off by a Louisville team who's unranked, who's lost to the three best teams they've played by a touchdown, and get your doors blown off by that team. A night game in the Valley, unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. You got outcoached. Wes Goodwin made not one single adjustment tonight on the defense. Louisville did the same thing from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, and our defense had no answers. And, yeah, I know we had guys go out. I know Peter Woods went out. I know DeMonte Capehart went out for a little bit. He did come back in the game. I know Trey Williams went out. I got it. People went out. They got hurt. That's also the deepest position group on our team. So, again, no excuses. And just the lack of adjustments by Goodwin tonight. The play calling on the offensive side of the ball was puzzling to me, specifically early in the game. I mean, those first two drives were like quite possibly the most disgusting drives I've ever watched. Like, what are we doing? Every play, we ran the ball on the first two drives. There were 6 plays, right? We went 3 and out on both of those drives. 6 plays, a total of 3 yards. Every single pass play was behind the line of scrimmage, I think, outside of 1. And they were all tackles for loss.
Yep.
I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling. And then the only run in those first 2 drives were the first play of the game, and it was a Phil Maffa run. The offensive line was piss poor tonight. They got blown off the ball. They got dominated by that Louisville defensive line. I mean, we couldn't even convert on short yardage situations. Every time we tried to convert on short yardage situations, the offensive line's in the backfield. What are you doing? So this was about as poor a performance as could have been trotted out on the field by Clemson tonight. I didn't see it coming, and I mean, it caught me by surprise. I'm not going to lie. I thought this was going to be, possibly a close game for a little while for Clemson, but I thought they would pull away. I thought their offense would eventually pull away in the end, but the offense had no answers. The defense had no answers. The team didn't look interested in even trying to win the game. I mean, even in the second half, when we're like down multiple scores and like we got to get it going, like, and we're driving down the field to go score, right? When we finally put the ball in the end zone for the second time, that drive took, I mean, I'm not looking at the numbers, but that drive took us forever. Like, we're sitting there, like we're almost operating as an offense on that drive, like we're winning the game. The play clock is getting down to 5, 4, 3 seconds before we're snapping the ball. Like, we didn't have the luxury of time. I don't understand it. And this trend, this whatever you want to call it, coming out of midseason buys for the Tigers, where we just look unprepared. I don't know what Clemson does in their bye week. I'm not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of exactly how Clemson operates during a bye week, but it's time to, whatever we're doing during the bye week next year, we need to do something completely different, because whatever it is, it's not working.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
It's three seasons in a row, man. I mean, like, you think about 2022, the Notre Dame game, which it's hilarious. Like, this is probably the closest game to that. And it was brought up during the week during interviews. Like, they were like Walker Parks in his interview talking about how, back in 2022 when Clemson was undefeated and it went up to Notre Dame, and it was a team that had lost 3 games, including a game to Marshall and a game to Stanford, and you were destroyed in all phases of the game because you came in and felt like you deserved to win or you expected to win, but you didn't play and do the things that you needed to do in order to get that result. That's what this felt like. But the most disappointing thing is that, I mean, you're at home. of course, and it's a night game. The fan base showed out. It was loud. I mean, I got videos from friends that were at the game, and like it was the atmosphere was incredible, and to put up that kind of performance in prime time, you're on ESPN, everybody's watching you. Not like that matters. If we were on the CW, I'd want them to come out and play with their hair on fire. But like, it just magnifies everything that we hoped. This program had gotten out of its system last year, and now you're not completely back to square one, but it almost feels like it. It's really hard to even like just point fingers at one particular thing, because it just, like I said, it was all bad. It was all awful. And so now you're at a point where, playoffs, that's a conversation like that's essentially a conversation like you need to focus on winning, next week against Virginia Tech, because
I don't even want to hear Clemson mention the playoffs. You don't deserve a spot in that 12-team playoff. That team that went out there and played Louisville tonight, you will get your absolute. If you think Louisville beat the crap out of you tonight, just wait till all the rest of them 11 playoff teams, if you sneak your way in there, what they're going to do to you, because they're going to make you look bad. You really want to go to the 12-team playoffs and go get TCU'd? I don't. I'm not interested in it, man. And if this is the true Clemson team that this team is this year, good. I'm glad they got their doors blown off at home against Louisville, because better than stringing us along this whole season thinking they've somehow turned the corner and then go get splattered the first round of the playoffs. Like, I mean, this performance tonight, it's absolutely inexcusable. There's and it'd be one thing if you just like it was one of them games where nothing was going right. Sometimes, you're turning the ball over, freak things happen. This was not a freak win by Louisville. This was a domination at every single facet of the game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Their secondary absolutely bottled up every single one of our receivers. When we tried to run the ball, specifically in short yardage situations, their defense absolutely blew our offensive line off of the ball. Cade looked like the return of the happy feet, especially early in the game, in the pocket. He had the return of those happy feet in the pocket, right? The defensive side of the ball. I mean, the running lanes that you gave, the missed tackles, the poor angles, the lack of pass rush at all, the no adjusting from clearly seeing that they're going to cut you on almost every single play. Why did we not adjust? You knew they were going to cut you. There was no adjustment. So, and then the special teams. I mean, holy crap. Like, that ain't been fixed at all. Like,
no.
It's terrible, man. You get 2 block kicks, and I'm not saying Clemson would have won the game if they make any of those field goals. They probably wouldn't have, because they played like absolute garbage tonight at every aspect of the game. But it just goes to show that like Louisville absolutely dominated this team, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah,
frankly, it's just unacceptable. Louisville's not that good of a team, and no disrespect to the Louisville fans, I congratulate them. They outplayed Clemson. They outcoached Clemson. They deserve to win the game and all that stuff. But I don't know what that was out there from Clemson tonight. That offense looked absolutely inept, looked terrible, looked like they didn't know what to do. It looked like they didn't know what to call, because suddenly we don't know how to beat 2 high safeties. Apparently Clemson's offense don't know how to beat 2 high safeties. I mean, that's what they showed me tonight. They just don't know how to beat it.
And it's weird, because it's like it felt like they weren't prepared to see it, when it's something that even going back to last year, teams consistently did that to you, because they knew that, okay, we're just not going to give up any big plays, because eventually they can't get out of their own way so much that they're going to screw it up eventually, and we just have to let them. The more plays they run, the more likely they're going to give us the football. And now you've seen it this year for a different reason. You haven't turned the ball over, but they're trying to eliminate explosive plays because that's what this offense is, throughout the season has, been priding itself on. And when you saw it from teams like Florida State and Virginia and Wake Forest, you responded well. I mean, and that gets to the point where we have to, you proved everybody that said that, okay, everything about Clemson's offense is due to the defenses they were playing. You proved all of those people right. And, it's really disappointing, of course, that's the kind of narrative that's going to be pushed now, rightfully so. And you had an opportunity against a team that has, better athletes than Virginia and Wake Forest and Stanford and all the other teams you played other than Georgia. And the second you played, you looked. It wasn't even like there was a noticeable but still competent level of play. But it was a step back. It was complete ineptitude. So now you're at a point where it's like, okay, we've seen this team play two above, one, top 10, top 5 team, and another above average, capable, talented Power 5 team, and you've looked bad, flat out awful, offensively, especially in both of those games, and defensively, you weren't much better. Obviously, in the second half of the Georgia game, we saw how that went. But against Louisville, it was all game. They got whatever they wanted. When it came to running the football, that they only possessed the ball for 22 minutes. They only ran like 59 plays, but they were sitting at over 6 yards per play. So they were getting whatever they wanted. You were getting blown off the ball, and you made no adjustment. With the quick game, I don't understand why that was. Louisville didn't do anything that you shouldn't have expected them to do on either side of the ball. Offensively, you knew they were going to, try to, get the ball out in space quickly, to their receivers because they weren't going to try and protect for, 3-4 seconds and push the ball down the field. That's not how teams have played you this year. They're just like, okay, if we can get the ball in space and force them to tackle, that's going to, that's our recipe for success. And they did it to perfection. And the times where they did, drop back, try to, take shots, you weren't getting pressure against an offensive line that was beat the hell up. They had guys out. That's what sucks the most is that it's like that was supposed to be the matchup of anything in this game that you felt like you would be able to go out and win. And you just didn't. That's pretty bad, man.
You ended up with basically no QB pressure, no sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. That's what you ended up with as an defense.